Good evening, everybody. We are back with Crusader Kings 2. I apologize for not streaming on Monday. That's going to be a reality of grad school, unfortunately. I was going to try and do a reading stream during the week. Didn't happen. Basically, the same things that kept me busy on Monday continued on until Wednesday. And I'm streaming tonight mostly because I didn't want there to be another unexpected absence, but I do have an exam on Monday. It's actually a pretty intense one too, so it's going to be probably a brief stream tonight. I do have a fairly hard deadline for when I'm going to finish, but I will try and make sure that there's some decent content. And I mean, even though I said it's a hard deadline, I'm kind of weighing my I'm sort of just weighing in terms of how much time I have for study and sort of the things that I've got planned. So I don't know. I'll see how the stream goes. I'm trying to figure out the pockets where I can move things, but I feel for this exam there's no shortage, or sorry, there's no upper bound to how much I can study for this. So with that in mind, I apologize. I know it's more desirable for me to stream a little bit more regularly, but as I sort of said during on some of the tweets, ultimately what I study, in my opinion, is the thing that will fuel whatever content that sort of... I really don't like using terms like this because I think sometimes it sounds a little bit, I don't know, self-congratulatory, but insofar as I can give a unique stream on Twitch, part of that is because of the nature of my studies and how I engage with them. So with that in mind, there's a cost, right? I don't know the things that I know by simply massaging a bunch of books. It usually comes not just from reading a book once, but studying it, engaging with it, doing problems, and just generally trying to gain as much knowledge about it as I can. And grad school is certainly a challenge, that I need to work at, right? It's not a first-year course. It's not, cram the night before the exam and you'll do okay. I definitely need to make sure that I'm on top of the studying. So, EP Warrior the Lord, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, with that in mind, once the exams are done, I'll be a little bit more on top of streaming as consistently as I normally do. I will definitely make sure that I do a reading stream at some point to make up for the new CK2. Nope, same CK2 as before, but we are doing a Charlemagne playthrough this time around. You may notice, I think the last time you were in here, I wasn't using a visualization mod. There's a couple of map mods that I'm using just to put some of the textures from the map, make sure that those are on the realms view, which I normally stay on. And then there's one of the other adjustments is the borders, which I think looks kind of nice in Europe. I can distinguish between the different territories. But I noticed I played an India playthrough kind of on my own time, and some of the territories are a little harder to look at. I guess this is unfair because it's all grayed out. But yeah, actually, there's some stuff I should talk about the game before we get started. But I will say, so the plans in terms of the stream, I will still continue on with Shadowrun. It definitely feels like the progress on Shadowrun is a little bit slower than I wanted it to be. I think in the end, that's just because, I can only stream it on the Mondays. And of course, how long I can stream on a Monday is sort of a function of what kind of work I have ahead of me. So that's a small sort of disadvantage that I have. But in addition, it sort of feels like I really like Shadowrun and I'd like to give it my all, but it'd be nice if I could find a spot for some other content, because there's definitely no shortage of games that I would like to run on the stream. So I'm taking a look into how I can find the balance between that. But as always, Crusader Kings 2 is an anchor on the channel. We'll always be doing that on a Friday. And the other thing I want to do is find a specific day to do a reading stream. One, to make up for the fact that I didn't do it on Monday, but two, because it's about time to do that. What's my goal with the HRE? It's a little bit like the House of Rose playthrough, which is just to get as much territory and power as I can. So we'll actually, this is a good segue into what we're going to be doing tonight. So we still need to get primogeniture in. This guy has kind of outdone himself as far as age is concerned, but at any given moment, this guy could kick the bucket and we'll throw the realm into chaos. Now, as far as what we're going to accomplish, I think our immediate goals have been to claim the rest of Sicily. And you can sort of see, Sicily and Lombardy. We have one more county in Lombardy, which we need to take. And then I think it's 3 more in... No, actually, we have quite a bit of Sicily that we still need to take. So the immediate goal would be to wrest the remaining parts of our Italian holdings from the Byzantine Empire. And then I think the path that we were going to take would be to sort of recapture the Christian counties, or at least the ones that are left, from the Umayyad Empire, and then unite Christianity under our banner. So that means eventually moving north into what will eventually become the UK. I suspect the way that this will be accomplished will actually be to, have a war with the Umayyads and then take a little bit of territory in England, and then the Umayyads sort of like alternate between them, because of course I don't want to lose a massive amount of prestige just by just for breaking truces or something like that. And then at this point it's just sort of I do want to try and keep as many Duke vassals as I can. So as far as that's concerned, I want to have imperial administration, but that's going to involve quite a bit of manipulation. Yeah. Hey, Sir Wedgie, thank you very much for the well wishes, and thank you for your tweets. I did not wind up installing El Capitan. That will probably happen after the stream, but looking forward to it. I generally like the OS updates. I think they're good, especially because they tend to do things like battery life. So I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about this playthrough over the week, but my instinct tells me that I should be switching my succession laws to seniority. Now, the problem is that I've delayed this long enough that I'm not only do I need to wait for peace, but I also need to wait for the conflict between my vassals to finish. So the reason I'm doing that would be, it is going to involve changing 4 different kingdoms, but just the number of titles that I wind up losing, and more importantly, who I lose it to. These are all people who've got some fairly robust succession plans. The reality is that I'm probably going to be regaining my territories through revoking titles rather than just murdering my way to those titles. So one of the other things I've been working on here is actually I set up an assassination attempt to the heirs of territories that I'll be claiming. So in this case, it does sort of weaken my my dynasty, but not to a point that I'm too worried about it. I guess the way to think about this here is with the number of sons that I have and sort of the ones who are like, the idea here is that I'm trying to kill the people who have the possibility of having sons of their own. So he's married right now, for instance. So I need to get rid of him. Otherwise, there's basically 2 or 3 generations worth that I need to wipe out. I'm a little bit less threatened by, let's say, this kid, right? 8 years before he can get married. Earth Bowser, how's it going? Good to see you again. I'm a little less worried about somebody like this, simply because even if they inherit a title, there's going to be a long period of time for them to get a wife, which means there's going to be an even longer period of time before they can have a kid. So there's nothing I can really do about my immediate sons. This has no valid plots, partially because I've got my assassination attempt already, but also if I were to remove the assassination attempt, there would still be a no valid plots option on here. So my middle ground right now is to just set up some plots against figures who I think will be the most difficult to sort of wrest control of territories away from. And then the next stage of this plan will be, normally I don't like doing, but of course seniority means it's going to be this 46-year-old. So, I think there's a fairly reasonable chance that we'll be able to get the legalism that we need to bring it in. So we're gaining basically about one culture point a month, and we need a little over 100 to accomplish what we're looking for. As far as the council is concerned, we've got the court chaplain working on researching cultural tech. We've got the spy master working on stealing technology. We don't have much in terms of factions to worry about. So we're kind of running full steam ahead in terms of getting the succession laws that we like. But unfortunately, I just don't think this is going to be happening under Pepin II. It would be incredible if he lived long enough for that to happen. Earth Bowser, we are done with the House of Rose. We actually started a Charlemagne playthrough. That was the most popular request in chat when we finished House of Rose. We actually had a really special event for that because W. Shand raided us. So I think if we weren't at 100 people that night, we were definitely close to it. Introduced a lot of people to Crusader Kings 2, which was fantastic. And yeah, we decided to do Charlemagne. History's already turned out a little bit differently from what we expected, but in this case here, we founded the Holy Roman Empire, and our immediate plans will be to get the succession laws such that we have a single individual inheriting, preferably primogeniture, although we were just talking about how we'll do seniority as a sort of a stopgap measure. Then we'll reclaim, the last little bit of Lombardy. We'll take Sicily from the Byzantine Empire, engage in a fairly early Reconquista, and unite Christianity under our banner. So we're doing fairly okay with the Holy Roman Empire. I do eventually want to start moving east, but of course I'm already well over my vassal limit, and that's not really going to change unless I start making kingdom titles. But for the last couple of streams actually we were talking about why I've not created any of these other kingdoms. It's just simply because if I create the kingdoms now, they're going to be under Gavelkind succession, which means that's just so many more titles that I'm going to have to try and change the succession laws for. Even now, it's getting a little unmanageable in terms of dealing with two figures who have kingdoms, which I'm at some point going to need to revoke and change the succession laws for. So, with that in mind, let's unpause. Right now, we're just trying to run out the clock on this war. I don't want to commit any troops to it. And again, for intermediate plans, I'm also going to be trying to build as many cities as I can. Now, if this character dies, which could literally happen at any day, we're going to lose the... I'll show you the duchy. We're going to lose the Duchy of Orleans, which means we'll be stuck with Valois, which is only 3 counties. My first priority will actually be to reclaim this. Oh, looks like we need to find ourselves a new spy master. I received word that your spy master, Duke Rudolph II of Alsace, has been trying to learn of the new technological advancements made in one of my provinces. This is intolerable, and as to stop further interference, I have arrested him. Signed, Sultan Rashid of the Umayyad Sultanate. Most unfortunate. Send in the next clone! So with that in basically with the possibility of losing these counties in mind, what I'm going to be focusing on now is upgrading my existing territory. So for instance here, 765, I can build another city, and we've actually got 2 spaces for a city here, again, about 765. So we're saving up some money right now. We've got a fairly healthy income, about 13 a month. And so the idle time is basically spent waiting for the war to finish out. We need to wait for my vassals to stop fighting each other. And then we're not going to spend any of that money on... we're not going to spend any of the money on... What's his... he's 24. Actually, you know what? I really don't need to... I don't really need to pay to get him back. Alright. Countess Ludwiga of Impuries, let everybody know about my plot to kill Prince Gunold of Saxony during a drunken stupor in the local tavern. I should never have included that drunken blabbermouth in a plot this delicate. So he's going to hate me now. But I'm curious what my son is going to think about. Attempted murder of a child -50, but apparently he still has a 100 opinion of me, which is cool. He does not. Alright, well, I probably should have seen that coming. Dispiner, I don't normally. What we're doing this time around, I can't remember the exact titles of the mods. Actually, maybe it'll show in my Steam page. This is actually, I was going to mention this. By the way, welcome to the stream. I should let you guys know there's a publisher weekend going on, so I'll talk a little bit about the deals going on there. But let me see if I can bring up... I should be able to bring this up in the workshop to show you which ones I'm running. So in this case, I'm running Novus Graphicus and the Transparent Map mod. So Novus Graphicus is a little bit more subtle. It sort of changes the borders and things like that. So you'll notice, you know, kind of the dotted lines and such. The Transparent Map I just got so you could sort of see the textures of... I mean, I know the stream quality sucks, so this may not be apparent, but you can sort of see the textures from the mountain ranges and that. I just thought it looked a little bit nicer. But those are the only two mods that I use. I have been meaning to play the the Game of Thrones mod for Crusader Kings 2, but they haven't updated it for the most recent patch, and I thought it probably wouldn't be that great of an idea to downgrade and then upgrade again just for one stream. But we will be doing that sometime in the future. At least they don't bind castrate like the Byzantines. That is absolutely true. One thing I will say, I kind of thought the transparent mod was going to include things like forests still, so that's a little bit of a shame. But I think it's a nice one, so... Oh no, Dispiner. I tend not to mod any of my games, really. But yeah, so this was just as a straight vanilla playthrough of... we did start as Charles of West Francia, so Charlemagne. He ultimately didn't found the Holy Roman Empire. It actually required his nephew to do that. But this has been a fairly educational playthrough just because once you found the HRE and you want to start doing expansion, you run into the problem I have, which is the vassal problem, vassal issues. So I was happy to make the HRE, and we've got some achievements ahead of us, which is good. But I'm definitely running, like I would have preferred to have conquered a lot more territory than I already have, and we certainly have the army for it. We're 34,000 strong. The biggest contender is the Byzantine Empire, which right now has 13,000 troops. Now, admittedly, that is they're at a fairly weak point. They should normally have about 30,000, but we have in history had an army as big as 50,000, and it's just because our vassal limit is so screwed up that we aren't fielding a bigger army. But yeah, in any case, we basically have an army that can trample over anybody that we want. And I'm just sort of waiting for primogeniture to be able to start distributing the kingdoms and get my vassal limit. The new Byzantine Empire color? I always thought it was like this. Actually, I guess it's a little... a little brighter. Miss Cuppy Cake, great to see you again. Sorry, Despiner, I will refrain from going over to the east until I absolutely have to. All right, I was going to talk... Sorry, we will go back to gameplay in a second, but I do want to bring your guys' attention. You know that I have a love-hate relation... Actually, I was going to say, with Paradox, it's just a pure hate relationship, but with Paradox's games, I'm a big fan. So there is a publisher weekend going on right now. I will let you know there's some fairly good deals to go on, so I'll give you some recommendations. Earth Bowser, I do have the Way of Life DLC. I actually have, we're running all of the DLC except for the Aztec Sunrise or whatever it's called. I will never run that mod unless somebody specifically donates and says, you have to get the Aztec mod. That's, the one rule that I have is that if a donation is specifically for something for the stream, I will use it as such. Which actually gets me to the last piece of DLC for this one. But other than that, which, I mean, Paradox themselves have said is not really canon. It's just sort of an optional mod if you want. But in this case here, we will have all of the DLC. CPO Williams donated so that we can get Horse Lords. We're not running Horse Lords because that would have corrupted this Iron Man save. But the next playthrough we'll be doing will have Horse Lords. But every other mod that isn't Aztecs showing up in the Middle Ages is... Sunset Invasion. Thanks. We don't have Sunset Invasion, but other than that... Oh, that's cool, Despider. I mean, the big one for me is that, like, I didn't see the point. It didn't seem to have a place for me. But yeah, I mean, it's... If somebody was like really insistent and saying it's like, this is actually a really fun mod to play, I might consider it. But Miss Cupcake, so this game has, one of the reasons I dislike Paradox is because they have a really consumer unfriendly DLC policy, which is why I wanted to talk about this this publisher sale. So they created a DLC which has this fictional invasion of Western Europe by the Aztecs. So obviously this did not happen in history, but you can download a DLC. It's a paid DLC which has this invasion from South America. Now most of the mods will be, so like the most recent one is Horse Lords, where you'll play the Mongols, or it'll be Charlemagne, which brings the age back to 769 AD, and this is the playthrough that we started. We played as Charles of West Francia, better known as Charlemagne. Or Way of Life was the most recent one, which really fleshed out a lot of the role-playing elements of the game. So Sunset Invasion is sort of a notorious DLC just because it was sold to people and then people really didn't like it, and then they said after the fact, it's like, well, it's kind of optional, we made it on a weekend or something like that. So Horse Lords is too easy right now. Nomads need to be nerfed. Oh, that's good to know, Zombie Nerd. So I mean, again, there was a specific donation to the channel for me to get that, so I will be playing it at some point in the future. But we will be we're not going to be playing that for a while, so hopefully we'll get another we'll get another patch in before that happens. With no DLC oh yeah, see, I haven't played without DLCs, but if you get troop builds 5, oh wow, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, so to Earth Bowser's point, the way to play a game like this is you start off, you get the core game, and you get the DLC that is interesting to you. So I have a friend of mine is in the Muslim Students Society. He is a Muslim himself, and his brother. They're the kind of people who will go into like the common areas, and they're very happy, very open to talk about the religion with other people. So we'll usually talk about history. We'll talk about Islam, and so obviously in his case, it makes sense to get the DLC that lets you play a Muslim caliphate. Like, that is a piece of history that he's very likely going to want to play. Sons of Abraham is another good example, because I think it adds some extra material, especially borrowing from the Jewry. In my case, I made sure that I got the Republic DLC right away because I'm fascinated by Merchant Republic. So the way that you start off with is if you ever want to start playing a game like this, you find the core game, which is here somewhere. Crusader King. I'm Canadian, so right now it's $8.79, and you just add the DLC that is interesting enough to you. And then over time, you start building up that collection, and you wait for sales like this, where it goes to like 75% or 80% off, because then it's just a couple of bucks for DLC. Otherwise, this game is basically hundreds of dollars. And this is a fun game. It's not a game that is worth hundreds of dollars. So their two big flagship titles are Crusader Kings 2 and Europa Universalis 4. Similar deal with Europa Universalis 4. I bought it piecemeal, getting the DLC that I thought was worth it. I personally don't recommend spending any more than 75% off on DLC. Don't bother. Also, they have ebooks. Don't bother getting the ebooks. They are available for free online. If you think The Art of War is something that you need to pay to read. Oh. Despiner, thank you very much for that follow. I know we're not giving you a lot of gameplay, but I wanna whenever there's a sale going on, I always want to let people know sort of the right way to do this. But basically, start with the things that are interesting to you. So again, I got Wealth of Nations and things like that for Europa Universalis 4. Whatever speaks to you first, try it out. If it's not for you, then, it's not that big of a cost. And if you do really like it, then, just learn the game as you go, right? If you get all of the DLC all at once, then there's just that many more features to figure out. So again, I really like Crusader Kings 2. If you ever want to know how the game works, or if you've just gotten it as part of the sale, ask questions in chat. I'm always happy to help that out. Yeah, Earth Bowser, it's 25% off right now. Although somebody else said that already, so... Miss Cupcake, oh yeah, don't feel it. This game is very complicated, so I'm happy to talk more about it, but especially because it's on sale, I wanted to make sure I went through. By the way, Earth Bowser, I would recommend wait, unless you really want to play the Mongols, I would wait till 75% off. They usually will do it when a new one's coming out, but if you're feeling like CK2 is pretty stale, obviously any sale is better than paying full price. Didn't buy CK2 or any DLC on sale. Zombie Nerd, I'm so sorry to hear that. Always buy bundles or packages, never in just vanilla game. Yeah, I mean, getting the vanilla game is going to be... It is what it is. That's all I can say. Buy the game, buy the DLC that you find interesting. And for my part, I'm debating on City Skylines. It says $16.49 right now. In reality, I'd probably want to get the deluxe edition just so I can get like the special monuments. But I don't know. People seem to really like... If anybody has recommendations on City Skylines, that might push me over to the edge. This sale is going on until the 5th. So, I mean, I've got what I need out of my grand strategy games. But if anybody wants to throw recommendations along the lines for City Skylines, this is a price... Well, I got my first paycheck for RAing, so I'm not exactly wealthy, but I am at a point where I have a little bit of disposable income, so this is about right for me. And yeah, if anybody wants to recommend the game or say wait for a better deal, I'm definitely interested in hearing that. But again, I am also happy. So if anybody has any questions about what the DLC is, or any of the what type of person might like this game, or some basics. If you're on the fence about it, obviously with the new refund policy, you have a couple of hours to get used to it. If you want to maximize your use of that couple of hours, please feel free to ask questions inside chat. I love explaining the game to people. What's the religion around in this game? So in this case, I'm obviously Catholic. There's a few Catholic holdouts under the Umayyads still. And then looks like... Sorry, I'm showing you the Byzantine Empire. Clearly, the rest of the world is the way that it should be. We've got Sunnis and Shias running around in the places they should be. Tengris, fairly large. Actually, I guess India turned out a little bit differently from what I would be expecting. Actually, it's 886. I don't spend a lot of time in India when I play this game, so I can't remember what it should be here. The biggest difference in terms of a regular playthrough is that it seems like the Abbasids just sort of fell apart. So it's now broken up into a few different realms here, which is good news for me because I'm basically the 800-pound gorilla. Zombie Nerd is giving a is advocating for the alternative, saying that the vanilla game is actually pretty good. So it's worth mentioning that in my part, I have never actually had the experience of just playing straight vanilla Crusader Kings 2. I did get the game with a couple of pieces of DLC, so it seems that there's a few different, a couple of different opinions. I mean, obviously you can't miss something that you haven't played, I suppose. But I will just caution you that if you want the experience that I have here, it's the one with all the DLC. So don't go nuts. Miss Cuppy Cake has heard a lot of good things about City Skylines. Okay, good to hear. You can say color, honor, and valor, so don't judge. Excellent, Despiner. We use the Queen's English around here. But you always see it as a non-brand name SimCity. Yeah, well, apparently EA really screwed up SimCity from what I heard. I'm gaming on a Mac right now, so I can't have the experience myself. Freighter 5, good to see you again. Lithuania is really hard. I hear it's hard in Europa Universalis as well. Should try creating your own Jewish nation and recreating the Third Temple, because when you restore the high Jewish priesthood, they can call crusades where all Jews join it. When the crusade is over, and if you win it, it creates a new nation called Zealots, owned by the... That's really cool. I was actually going to do the achievement where you restore the Kingdom of Jerusalem, but I haven't, obviously haven't done that yet. So what I'm doing here, because this is a daughter and the likelihood of me ever actually needing her to rule is very slim, I'm just going to find the closest duke, the one with the lowest opinion of me, and send her off to be educated by him. Or her. Generally it's a him. Yeah, Despiner, I always like recommendations. One of the best things, I mean, those of you who've been here a long time, I know it gets a little repetitive to hear me say stuff like this, but I've actually been extremely fortunate to have a really open and a really active chat. So I'm fairly new at streaming. I really enjoy, streaming it, especially a game like this, because my background, I'm currently at the Vancouver School of Economics for my master's degree. And... something like this appeals to me. Talking about the history, talking about sort of the strategy behind the game is appealing to me. And being able to, to have people give me material and give me recommendations either on what they want to see me do next or asking questions or something like that, especially because I don't have a cam, so I need to rely so much on my spoken words. I do actually really like it when people make suggestions. I obviously don't always take it. But I tend to find suggestions facilitate really interesting conversations anyway. So I am actually, it's funny because of course you do mention, you mentioned an achievement that I was actually looking to try and to do on my own. But it's obviously, if you haven't noticed, we don't make a lot of progress as far as years are concerned, just because I tend to talk a lot. Oh my god, a Magyar game. When I was working on, I'm trying to remember what the show was. The director of photography actually was really into the Magyars. It's weird the kind of history that people play. All right, Argonite, my co-conspirator sent word that a massive pit of manure has been prepared under the floorboards of an abandoned inn on the path to Prince Gunald. Will travel with his escort. Once they are seated at a table, kaboom! You're all the way at Toronto. So when you say at Toronto, does that mean that you are currently studying at the University of Toronto, or just that's the city that you reside in? My Emperor, I'm pleased to report the majority of the population of Zaragoza has been converted to the Catholic faith. I believe that's just cleaning up these here. We did actually get rid of the last vestiges of Germanic religion in sort of the Holy Roman Empire proper. We have been doing some conquests into Iberia, so we do have some Muslim holdouts, but I'm not as worried about those. I mean, in the end, any conflict is most likely going to be coming from the west anyway. So whether it comes from a Umayyad invasion or whether it comes from rebellion, it's just something we're going to have to deal with. Oh, Freighter 5, that's really interesting. My dad actually moved out to Belleville. I think he's moved since, but he was there for a while. Oh, you just live in Toronto. That's cool. I'm actually a little surprised at the number of Canadians in the channel. I mean, it's with Team Panda. I met. There we go. Now all the Americans are representing it. I'm sick of always being kind to everyone. Feel my wrath. So yeah, with Clara and Team Panda. So for those of you who are... Success! Prince Gundold perished in the manure explosion. There is no trace of my complicity to be found amongst the rubble. He went out with a bang. All right. So remembering why we did this, of course, was to get rid of any possible succession problems. So he's 13. Let's just take a second here. I don't think this is the best use of my resources. So 7, so I'm not scared of that. He doesn't have any kids. Okay. So I think at this point we do... I may cancel this plot after the fact, but I just want to thin out the herd a little bit to make my succession a bit easier. But yeah, I was saying, for those of you new to the stream, you'll see just above the, or just below the title, above the video, obviously, that I'm a member of Team Panda. That's run by a partnered streamer named Seriously Clara. She's based in Vancouver, as am I. And with that, she is much more social than I am. So she is, you know, she's kind of built up this, you know, her connections are going to be, you know, partially in the city, also online. But that tends to be the source of a lot of my Canadian connections are through her. But it's really interesting to actually see how many Canadians tune into this channel just on its own. I actually didn't know some of you were Canadians the way we were. Despiner, I did actually try to vassalize them before. I believe they still don't like me because of my culture. Oh, also because they're a king. We can... Yeah, Miss Cuppy Cake, it's obviously a great Canadian pastime to poke fun at the Americans. But clearly I do not draw inferences from the individuals who make headlines. I don't think all Americans are movie stars, and I don't think all Americans are John Boehner. Speaking culture shift, can culture shift over the ocean? What exactly triggers a cultural shift? I don't actually know the mechanics behind it. I do believe that it can cross an ocean. But in terms of culture shift, I think it's a question of who the ruler is. And then I know if you play if you play Ireland, you can actually have an advisor sort of promote immigration to cause the culture shift. But let me just take a look here. You can do it if a county has a different religion. I don't think that's true, because I've had Catholic provinces change to the French culture. I'm currently Lombard, so fortunately nobody's changed to that. In Europa Universalis, you can there's a specific mechanic to change the culture, but that's not... Oh, right. Let me just take a look here. Yeah, it rarely triggers. Yeah, that's my experience is it rarely triggers at all. Zombie Nerd tried 400 years in one game, wouldn't happen. That sounds about right. Yeah, Earth Bowser. I will say for sure that it's not a requirement that you have a different religion. It has to be ruled by someone of that culture. That's definitely true, and it increases the chance. Ah, it's stewardship that affects it. Okay, that's good to know. Everyone is talking about culture and you're adding nothing to the conversation. That's not true. You're talking about rednecks. So in this case, This is so hard to decide. I don't believe I will inherit this CB. How long is my truce? Until 94, so that's 7 years. Am I really gonna live to be 77? I don't think so. So we'll get a little bit of piety. I was gonna make the fabricate the claim so I could do an invasion later on, but I have a feeling that's just gonna be a waste. So we'll hold off. Hey, AK! Your stream is perfect to drive home from work with. That is excellent to hear. By the way, AK is another Vancouver streamer. He watches the stream more than he speaks in it, which is not a fault of his, because actually that's how I normally watch Twitch myself. But I actually know him probably best for his Mario Kart skills, because he did win a local tournament hosted by EXP Bar. But he does quite a few fighting games, if I remember correctly, as well as streams Dark Souls. He's a fantastic guy, wonderful sense of humor, also very forthright. So, wonderful guy. I don't see him stream as much as I like, but I'm sure it would be great to give him a follow so you can catch him when he does stream. So, good to see you again. Oops, forgot to turn off a notification. Sorry about that, guys. I hope your day at work went well, by the way, AK. All right. Over the ocean, you can only do it with the event that changes religion and culture that is activated if the religion is different than the liege's, though it is only for over the ocean when the countries are next to each other. The religion doesn't matter. And Miss Cupcake bought a car yesterday, and it's pretty. Why so many Vancouver streamers why know none of it? Probably because none of it strikes me as being very expensive to live in. I was actually thinking about this. So I'd be interested to know, like, when I think of the streamers that I know, they're actually people who do live in big cities and fairly expensive ones. So, you know, you've got Jesse Quill living in New York. You've got Clara and myself living in Vancouver. I'm obviously here for school, although I lived here before school, obviously. Finding Bonnie, how's it going? By the way, I can't remember. I never checked my YouTube messages, but I did finally give you a bit of feedback to your channel. Finding Bonnie is also a streamer. I believe does a little bit more YouTube, but somebody who has recently started hanging out on the channel has been absolutely wonderful to see. So great to see you again. The engine purrs and you love it. Miss Cupcake, what kind of car is it? I know nothing about cars, but I'm dying to know now. Yeah, so Despiner, what I was thinking about was, so in terms of streaming, if you want to make this your living, obviously, you know, the money that you make is going to be the same, right? So if I live in Vancouver, I spend $5 to subscribe to Clara. It's the same as somebody who lives in Nanaimo, who clearly doesn't pay the kind of rent that I do. Paying the same $5. So in this case, you don't have the equivalent. So like if you work in McDonald's in the Northwest Territories, you're probably going to be making more than what you would be earning in Vancouver. I don't know that for sure, but I'm almost certain just because of the cost of everything. So it sort of interests me that you have these full-time streamers who don't necessarily live in the cheapest cities. You'd almost think, like, because streaming can be done from home, that it would actually be an inspiration to move to cheaper places, but that doesn't actually always seem to be the way that it works. So oh yeah, Finding By. So I wasn't ignoring your share. It's long. I don't know if all of it will be useful to you, but I tried to be somewhat detailed and offer just, it was more so perspectives and alternatives. Like, they're not all recommendations for your channel. They're just sort of ways to think about what you're currently doing. And that's partially because obviously your format is quite different from what I do myself. So again, I enjoyed watching myself, and hopefully I will promote a useful train of thought to you. And if not, I apologize for taking up all your time. Sammy, you would stream, but your little laptop only gets 25 frames on CSGO anyway. Streaming would not work. Well, this is what this is actually what I run into. So I have a very poor bandwidth, and so that lent me to streaming games like Crusader Kings 2 or, Risk of Rain, which is maybe a little bit more action-oriented, but clearly the graphical fidelity is not BioShock, let's say. It's not, people are not watching that game specifically for its looks. So, in that regard, I think it's, sometimes these technical limitations can actually promote a style that winds up becoming your signature, right? Most people associate me with sort of strategy games or things like Shadowrun where I do a lot of dialogue. Clearly, quite a bit gets made about my vocal qualities because I'm a voice-only stream. So, in that sense, sometimes those limitations can be something that forces you to be a bit creative or just makes you find a bit of a niche for yourself. Now that said, there's definitely things that I would prefer. Like, number one, once I am making a reasonable income, I'm upgrading my internet and putting on a better quality stream. But try not to let too many things get in your way of streaming. Obviously, don't stream stuff that you like. If you legitimately only enjoy playing CS:GO, don't kill yourself trying to stream that unsuccessfully. You're not going to enjoy it, and you're probably not going to want to stream again. But if there's maybe an alternative that you can do as maybe a stopgap, that's how I got started streaming. And as you can see, the channel has grown since then. So, all right. Is this like the Vancouver Illuminati? Well, I am on Team Vancouver as well. So WTFosaurus, Ponce, we're all Vancouverites. So Miss Cuppy Cape got a 2012 Volkswagen GLI, so Jetta body with a nicer engine. Again, I have no idea what any of that means, but I'm sure chat will probably be benefit a little bit more. It's a manual, so you need to learn how to drive it. Average to earn in the Northwest Territory gets 80K. Yeah, I'm assuming for regular employment, which unfortunately, I'd love it if you could get 80K. Streaming. I don't think that's... You have to be like Lyric, who is incidentally another Vancouverite. Never met him though. Yeah, it's because supplies are definitely so... I mean, you have to fly it all up there. I'd love to see me at least try to stream CSGO into... Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, I'd have to do a bot game because my bandwidth isn't enough to sustain a live multiplayer game and stream at the same time. Finding Bonnie, yeah, that's pretty much what all my quote-unquote serious messages are like. Seriously, Clara has had to deal with a lot, let's say. Do you think they'll ever make Crusader Kings 3, or are they going to keep milking DLC forever? In terms of... So I believe the shift for Paradox is relatively recent. I do believe they will be making new games. So in this case, I think a good sort of... example of this would be Hearts of Iron 4. Hearts of Iron 3 sort of is crossing over into that DLC territory, but not quite the way that CK2 is. Now, I don't think there's going to be a Crusader Kings 3 for a while. There's actually still more to be added to the game. So if you think about it, you can't play a Theocracy. You can play a Merchant Republic. You can play an Islamic Caliphate. You can play Nomads. They're adding more and more of this kind of material all the time. But at the moment, you don't have some, what I would consider to be fairly major, I'd say some fairly major elements that would be desirable to add to the Crusader Kings 2 title. So I think what you would see, it's possible that they're developing Crusader Kings 3 right now, but with a mind for releasing it sometime later. I believe there are 4 projects under development at Paradox Game Development Studio right now. We know one of them is, actually, so we know 2 of them. So one of them is Hearts of Iron 4. The other one is Stellaris. So actually, maybe there's 3 more. There's at least 2 unknown projects for sure. It'd be cool if there was a Victoria 3, but I know neither of the Victoria titles have sold very well. But I think what you would see here, the reason why you would want to make another game over DLC would be you'd say it's like, okay, we've done all that we can with the existing engine and with the existing rule set. And what we're going to do now is we're going to build the game from the ground up again, and we're going to simplify a lot of things. So if you compare, an old version of a Paradox game to a new one, they don't get less complex, but they do get more... They do sort of streamline in terms of the way that they present the information to you. So unless I think there is an obvious improvement to be made in terms of... unless there's an obvious improvement to be made in terms of the display of information, I don't think it's in Paradox's best interests to make a new straight-out Crusader Kings game. Although I will say, if they do release Crusader Kings 3, obviously that's a big upgrade that people are doing. They're paying money to buy Crusader Kings again, and then you can, of course, reintroduce a whole bunch of things as far as DLC is concerned. So I think it'll happen. I just don't think it's going to happen soon. You want CK2 meets Total War? Oh yeah, so that was in a Humble Bundle recently. I did finally get the Total War games. So everybody's been mentioning I'd really like them and that I should stream them. I haven't played any of them yet, but I did get that knowing that was a request on stream. So, and it was so cheap to buy them. So I don't know which one I'm going to play first, but there will be Total War in our future. Yeah, CK. So the one thing I will say about CK that would maybe merit a new title would be, if you think about combat in CK2 versus Europa Universalis, I'd say the combat in CK2 is less sophisticated. You have, it really feels like it's just get an army larger than your enemy and you win. Whereas Europa Universalis 4, I remember being so angry at the combat because I needed to worry about things like leaders and terrain and the composition of my troops and things like that. So the original Rome Total War was by far the best. Okay, I know I got that in the Humble Bundle. I think basically in the Humble Bundle I wound up getting everything except Attila. Which, I mean, that would actually be interesting in and of itself, because I believe there should be some kind of Roman faction in that period of history, but I don't think you get Attila so you can play the Romans. You play it so you can have a guy who terrified everybody so much that they said the grass wilted beneath his footsteps. I've been kind of ignoring these messages here, mostly because there's not a whole lot to look at. I did lose a son. This makes it a little bit more convenient, actually, because I will be re-inheriting the Kingdom of Saxony. Unfortunately, I still lose Orleans. Actually, I should also be canceling this plot, because that's going to be my heir soon. All right, similar idea here. We actually, let me just double check my bishops. A lot of them are very loyal to the Pope. I don't really think I can swing a lot of these guys. So again, what we'll do here is we will just find the Duke who likes me the least, or possibly Count. Oh, no, I don't want to marry. So in this case, we just find the Duke who likes us the least. I'm not worried about mayors because they come and go. But we just want to make my vassals like me as much as possible. And, I mean, I'm just going to wind up marrying her off to some poor sap, so it's not that big of a deal. You want to be able to do the battles because you're sick of your army twice the size losing because the game says so. Wow, I've never actually had that happen. And Attila has terrible reviews. Kill all the bishops until the rest of them get the point. I've done that before. That was the House Rose playthrough. I actually have other uses for my assassin, though, so... The beatings will continue until morale improves. I like your style, Freighter 5. And yeah, Zombie Nerd, I hear that Attila actually has the same problems that with DLC that we've been complaining about with Paradox. That just, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like with the exception of XCOM, which I'm salty about it because I'm a student and, I want to not pay a lot for my hobby. But with the exception of XCOM, I really haven't seen any games change their price in a really, really long time. And clearly, software developers, you can go work at Google, you can go work at Amazon. There's a lot of different jobs that you can do that pay very well. And that's not even counting like all of the art people and stuff like that. So in terms of game production, the costs are not going down, with maybe the exception of the proliferation of low-cost engines like Unity and Unreal having a slight change to its pricing structure. But I mean, especially when you think about AAA games, like that's not that much of a cost savings. Like I don't really think the cost of licensing an engine is the biggest factor that you have when developing a game on that scale. So, you have to pay the bill somehow. You have to make gaming profitable. And DLC was the way that they did that. Microtransactions are the way that they did that. Personally, I don't care for it. But I do think, the market is kind of speaking in this sense. And people don't like paying upfront for games, unfortunately. And so it results in some practices that we can. Now, again, I think there's differences in terms of how. So I think Amplitude Studios is an example of a company that has done this very well. So Endless Space has, had one DLC released and then a number of free upgrades, but the sales of the game that increased over these updates, I believe, justified the cost of doing them. Now, they don't necessarily seem to be continuing down that path. They've actually released 2 different pieces of DLC for their follow-up, which is Endless Legend. So it may be that it didn't actually turn out that well for them. But I think there's actually something to be said for Firaxis because, think about how they did XCOM. There's the first XCOM game, fantastic. They released some DLC for it. Again, one DLC, kind of once upon a time we'd call that an expansion pack. Another fantastic entry. Really enjoy that game. I think it's, Firaxis always puts out quality. And I know everybody didn't like Beyond Earth, but we'll talk about that another day. And in the case of XCOM 2, I think that's them saying is like, look, we're going to put out a quality game. We're not going to nickel and dime you to death. That's not the way we do this. We're going to put out a quality product that, we're going to put the price that we think is fair for the effort that we put inside the game. And then you can tell us whether or not you want to buy it. And I think if they don't get a proper sort of response, I think if the game fails to attract the kind of audience that they were looking for, like the size of the audience that they're looking for, then I suspect you'll probably see them shift to a DLC style model. A new bird has arrived to Mew, and a new book on the art of writing poetry is in the library. Take it out for the hunt. Not a big fan of microtransactions either, but it seems like that's the way that everything's going. Yeah, Earthbound's I think the big thing here is, so like, let me imagine for a minute that I'm an indie developer. I'm possibly developing for phones. I'm maybe developing, and I want to get on Steam, and there's just so much going out there. So one of the things that you can do, of course, is sell yourself on being inexpensive up front. Lower that cost. So, if nobody knows about your game, you don't want to raise too many barriers for people trying it out. And so having a low cost is a way you can get around that. And again, the fact that you can do refunds on Steam is actually fairly nice, I think. Oh, this is good. I got some bonus diplomacy, which will help me with my Vassal limit problems. But, you have to make the money somewhere. So in this case, the microtransactions are how they do that. And I think, there are different ways of doing it well. So I don't like the way that Valve has been handling Dota 2, just because I think they are letting too many bugs get into the game and stay in the game. The Mac client was basically not supported for months. So I'm just going to free up a little bit of memory. I know this is a pain to watch on stream, but I don't want to have a sudden... sometimes I think this is a way to cure the crackle problems that I have. But where was I going with this? Yeah, so I mean, even the Valve model is a bit problematic. But for a while, I thought Dota 2 was done very well. But of course, that's a game with a really big inbuilt audience, right? There was a mod that was built around. Same with Team Fortress 2. There was an entire community around these established games. And I mean, Team Fortress 2 didn't start off as free to play. But in the case of Dota 2, it was really nice to see a game that was financed entirely through cosmetics rather than trying to nickel and dime everybody. I think Hearthstone is an example of free-to-play gone wrong. In fact, I think Hearthstone is particularly insidious because if you think about it right, okay, so there's a lot of people who will, just say get good scrub if you talk about how the game is pay to win. The biggest thing is that you can find cards. If you compare the basic deck to what people are playing with, there are cards that are strictly better than others. So, compare a Bloodfen Raptor to Knife Juggler. I don't have Knife Juggler. I'm not spending money on buying the cards to get Knife Juggler. And I can play games to get them, but keep in mind, if I win those games, I get more gold, which means that my acquisition of cards is going to be faster. So, in this case here, I think it is very fair to say that two evenly matched opponents, there's going to be a determining factor in the victory in terms of whoever has spent more money on cards, which is, I think, a fairly reasonable definition of pay to win. Now, clearly there are you can still play well with a simple deck. It doesn't mean that anybody who spends money on the card is automatically going to win, but your chances of success are going to significantly improve depending on how much money you spend on that game. And what's really insidious about that program is, from what I understand, the Grand Tournament has actually introduced a number of cards which are uniquely powerful compared to anything else that has happened inside of the game, which means that even people who've already spent money, the sunk cost, if they want to keep ahead of the curve, now they're obligated to buy into the expansion. That's one that really kind of gets me. So it's like, apparently the value of what you've put in before is not as great once they release a new expansion. I mean, at least with Crusader Kings 2, when I get a piece of DLC, that is a piece of content that is adding something to the game that I'm going to be able to play. Like I'm still getting something out of the Republic DLC, even though Way of Life has been released and Horse Lords have been released. Sorry guys, I haven't been paying attention to it, chat. I will follow up on it in a second. But in contrast, I think Heroes of the Storm has actually done quite well, because that's one that you can pay for heroes. But the big thing is that the way that a MOBA works is that you're not going to have an overpowered hero stay in for multiple patches. There may be balance problems in the game, especially because they're releasing so many heroes very rapidly. But, other than small balance issues, you don't have heroes that are by design overpowered. And of course, they rotate the free heroes every couple of weeks. So in this case, I think it's one where it's got a reasonable model in which they can be compensated for their effort, but it's one in which you can still enjoy the game with your existing hero pool if you want to. Like, personally, I'm just learning the heroes as I go by, right? As I play the game, I get my points, and then I can just unlock a new hero, and then I can get better with that hero. So it's sort of a built-in training mechanism for me. If you don't want to do that and you like having a large hero pool and you want to have that right away, well then, you pay up for it. But in this case here, you're not having anything significantly unbalanced in the game other than, the shifts that occur in patches. But I mean, that'll happen in Dota 2 as well. The only difference is you have all of the heroes unlocked. So if you want to play the super overpowered hero, then, you're going to, you just click them in hero selection. In Heroes of the Storm, possibly you'd need to buy the hero. But of course, you're kind of taking your life into your hands, because if you buy a hero because they're overpowered and they get nerfed in the next patch, well, congratulations, you just waste a bunch of cash. All right, so Attila was a demo and you unlock the game by paying DLC. I've actually heard that about that. That is a real shame if that's true. And Path of Exile, free to play done right. I only played a little bit of Path of Exile, actually. But, by the way, curiously, the number of viewers actually went up while I was ranting about free to play. Sorry, guys. And welcome. Well, great to have you in here, Zombie Nerd. Thanks a lot for hanging out, as always. Hope to see you again fairly soon. Alright, so we've got some technology from Seville. I didn't get a chance to see what it was. Maybe it was legalism, or maybe it was culture. That'd be fantastic if it was. Alright, so I really want this war to finish. I believe our civil wars have been taken care of. Should rant more, it brings in viewers apparently. You know, I don't mind ranting, but I really should do gameplay over it. It's just when I get on a sustained topics like, let's say, free-to-play or DLC models, usually there's something like an assassination attempt that triggers in the middle of it. So, now, speaking of things that trigger. The Bredian Peasant Revolt has declared the Peasant Revolt for Breda on Emperor Pepin the Magnanimous. Peasants have risen up in Breda, led by a disgruntled former soldier. The rebels seem to demand independence. Well, I don't really need to raise any major armies for this, so let's just send the retinue to go crack some heads. I'll put some good generals in. I don't really need to do any of these steps, but it'd be nice if I can minimize the casualties, just because replacing these guys will be a drag on my economy. I could, you know, like levy up and handle this, but it'll take more time than I think it's worth. We were talking about combat a little while ago, so I'll actually slow it down for the benefit of those who may not be familiar. So they're heading to Sticht. It's going to be a little tedious while they walk over, but... So we're going to suffer a fairly substantial penalty because we're crossing I don't know what the term is, a big river. So it'll tell me right here, -20. They're not gaining any territory modifiers, but you can basically see what's happening here. It's got a few different phases. So this is the skirmish phase, so that's where your archers are the most powerful. There will be a hand-to-hand combat that occurs eventually. This is tracking the morale, and it'll actually tell you the strategies that people are employing if that happens, but it looks like that hasn't gone on yet. Alright, so there was the charge. There's hand-to-hand combat. These guys have completely broken, and we mop it up. So... Alright, and looks like the Holy War has ended as well, so basically the idea here is that the battles are won based on morale, but of course morale is going to be affected by things such as you know, the number of soldiers that you have, the number of casualties that have been taken, things like that. I almost never go into detail on these screens, but it's actually worth mentioning. So you've got your war score, which is just sort of in this case, like, it's purely the battles that are going to be measuring this, but this is technically a war. There's prestige, so the larger and the more impressive the victory, you do gain prestige. You can gain piety. That would be in a holy war, which this isn't. And then, of course, because you get better when you practice at things, the more war you do, the more technology you get. It's not major, like it's 0.7, so we'll actually earn more in a month just being awesome than we did from that particular battle. But obviously, this stuff adds up over time. And then, of course, the data here in terms of what you know, the number of troops you went in with and the number of troops that you have. So we lost quite a few archers. That's not surprising because we spent most of the time in the skirmish phase. But clearly we just steamrolled over them. And probably if I had cavalry, this would have been a complete wipeout. But there's 634 remaining, and they are heading to Gelra. So we will follow. And I won't bother showing you. In this case, they were wiped out, so we offer peace. In this case, we just gained 20 prestige. not really that big of a deal, but better than nothing. And we can possibly exile him later. Usually they don't wind up giving you money, but if you wait a while, sometimes they do. Out of curiosity, is Scotland called Pictland still in your game? You've read that it's bugged in the Charlemagne start, so it never converts to Scotland. It's definitely called Pictland still. I don't know when it's supposed to turn into Scotland. Let me see if there's anything we can find in the region of Scotland. Yeah, I don't know if there's supposed to be like an event or something like that that triggers in the game to change that. I mean, I'm not too worried because that's just going to be my territory eventually. But I don't have, this will be the only, this is actually the first Charlemagne start that I've done, so I have no idea whether or not that bug is persistent or if that's just the idiosyncrasies of a given playthrough. Alright, to the most illustrious Pepin II, the good burghers of Compiègne are barely able to pay their taxes. Our coffers are empty. I humbly ask that you lower the taxes in your cities. Your humble servant, I don't care. Flatter and soothe them because of my high diplomacy skill. Scotland is nice and strong. Scot pride. David, if you're watching, I'm going to own you. Actually, David, if you are watching, where is it? Okay, well, they call it Fib, but I believe this is your home territory. Feel free to say, if you are watching, feel free to say hi. I know you may not necessarily be watching watching with chat enabled, but okay, so I have no idea why there are 4,000 raiders, but I guess I need to deal with them. Oh god, what am I doing? Okay, well, that'll wipe out pretty soon. So, decision time. Oh lordy. I only need 47 more legalism and then I can change my succession laws. Okay, so I did say I was going to do seniority, but I'm so close to... I'm so close to getting legalism 3 that I'm actually gonna... I'm gonna be stupid and risk it. The next thing that I will do, actually, this sounds borderline paranoid, but in this case I'm actually gonna reassign my spy master just to make sure that it's still possibly triggering. You've read that when it's supposed to turn into Scotland, it just turns back to Pictland again. Okay, I mean, I don't know when it does that, so... Man, these raiders are no joke. I mean, I'm clobbering them, which is fantastic, but I've never seen 6,000 raiders before. I mean, I was going to say, in the House Rose playthrough... Oh, cool. We got a CB on this again. I'm not taking the CB just because I'm convinced this guy's going to die any minute, but he's been lasting so far. Okay, we can appoint another commander. Or probably a better term would be a replacement commander. And I always like to... So one thing that I do, just, again, it's little efficiencies. Generally, I'm not going to wind up using any of these individuals, but just in case... so I've got, right now, somebody with 25 martial skill. That's going to be my obvious next commander. The next best is 16. And best still, he's a lunatic. And you always want crazy people leading your army. You never know what they're going to do. I mean, just imagine some general running naked straight at you. Like, I'd be terrified by that. supreme confidence. So, always hire the crazy people. And he's a master seducer. So, in this case, him running naked towards you, you better watch out. So anyways, I always keep that in the back of my mind. We've got a level 16 commander. And notice here, we've got a bunch of level 14s at level 10. So in this case, yeah. We're hiring the naked dude. Next thing that I look at, again, just in terms of bits of efficiencies, I always keep an eye on what the second one is. So we've got 15 strength here. Now, the next one is 14, so there's no point in frustrating somebody by replacing them. But in this case, it's just a nice little way of sort of, when one of these natural promotions come up, it's a nice little way of doing a small reshuffle and keeping your army strong. I'm going to play some CK2 as well. You're trying to take over the world from a single count in Wales. Oh man, Earth Bowser. Let me know if you accomplish that. I was hoping to try and take over the world in the House Rose playthrough, but I think it was a little late in... I think it was a little late in terms of really getting the ball rolling on that. So best of luck, and feel free to stop by and let us know how it's going. I probably won't be streaming that much longer tonight because of the homework, but we'll make it count for as long as we are. Alright, I promised my wife Pelagia that I would find a suitable ride for her when her mare had to be put down. Now I'm in luck. There's not only one, but 3 different mares that have been brought to Paris. I can take the skewbald one, a bit old but sweet. For 5 gold, the white mare is a bit frisky, but she'll be fine. And sorry, honey, all of these will be breeders. Yeah, we'll buy her the expensive one. Lord knows I need more sons. My 74-year-old ruler with his 49-year-old... 49?! Should divorce her and get a new wife. She has a lover's pox. Oh yeah, this is the one who was having an affair on me. I should trade up. But I'm actually having a little bit of trouble finding daughters for my son, so I don't want to... The new bird is almost too perfect. I enjoy every hunt with her, and the cook has trouble finding new recipes for rabbit. I am a falconer. Gain the trait. Is there an achievement for that? Let's take a quick look. So you'll notice we were losing a bit of money for a while just because of my my adventures against the raiders. Soon you too will have the lover's box. So many raiders to clobber. Alright, more commander appointments. So I think we're still looking at level 14, so usually there aren't any improvements to make so quickly afterwards. This is a mind, again, it looks like we're fairly idle right now, but it's actually we are on the path to some specific things here. So no point in really doing any kinds of upgrades to economy yet. Church infrastructure is okay, but in reality, I probably should be working on something like either town infrastructure or castle infrastructure. Improved keeps might have an argument for things like castle walls, but that's, it sort of depends on your circumstances. Church infrastructure, I haven't upgraded any of my churches, so the reality is that there's already going to be improvements that I can do somewhere else. What I am doing, though, is building a lot of cities. So you'll notice that I've maxed out my capital, Paris. That's sort of a no-brainer, especially because I've got my steward collecting taxes there. We've now filled out Ames. That's actually been the case for a while. So we move on to Vermanda. And again, we've got 674, so we still have a ways off. But one of the reasons why I build cities is so that we can have some of these upgrades. So city walls, it is what it is. It gives you a little bit of extra tax income in that. But the big one here is university, technology spread rate, and it's economic technology. So in this case, it's something that reinforces itself. You can build more upgrades both for your cities, but also these other like institutions. Like, so when you when you get your church upgrades, you can go to the bishoprics that you have and do things like monastic school, and that'll give you, bonus cultural points and things like that. I almost never really actually build the monastic school, but that's usually because I've been spending all my time and money building up my cities. So in this case here, I want to max out my holdings first and then worry about the upgrades, just because I think the raw payout for a city is more. And then, of course, the individual who's running it, like the mayors or the bishops or the barons in the case of castles, it's not like they're just sitting on their hands. They might actually do some upgrades on their own. So in that case, you just get some free tax revenue. But you're not going to have, especially if you're the count of that area, you're not going to have somebody actually build a city for you. So that's the main reason. All right, yet another CB. Still not convinced that we're gonna last long enough for it, even though I hope we do. All right, looks like we've got a betrothal. Yep, another opportunity for a commander. In this case, we're actually going to be heading down to the 13 territory fairly soon, so no real reason to look at alternatives. I was setting a little bit of a patrol path because I'm really getting tired of pausing the game. Ah, there we go. All right, so realms basically in chaos. Whoa. What's this achievement? Stargazer build an observatory. I don't remember doing that. All right, so we finally kicked the bucket. It's actually a lot older than I thought he was going to be. All right, Emperor Pepin II is retired from the world at age 74. He died a natural death. Long live Emperor Gundold. So be it. So we've got technology upgrade options, and we finally get the legalism that we want, which is exactly what we were looking for. In this case, we will also take... Actually, this is a good question. So let's take a look at Paris. Can't build a castle town because I don't have castle infrastructure. Can't build walls because I don't have improved keeps. All right. So, castle infrastructure will give me barracks and training grounds. Improved keeps will give me... Okay, all of these suck. What does town infrastructure give me? Court. I think court gives me revenues. Let me double check. If I'm not mistaken, it's an upgrade to the town market, so... Does that make sense, though? No, you know what? I'll just do construction. Happy retirement, Pepin II. I got him a watch. All right. So we do have a couple of problems here. Currently, we only hold one... Oh, no, we do actually have more than one. We have Barcelona as well. But that's not the duchy that we want. The duchy that we want is owned by a relative. Fortunately, though, we are the next in line. Is his wife pregnant? She is, damn it. All right, well, we just need to be quick. Well, no, let's face it, that's not going to happen. Okay, so we're at a pretty major turning point in this playthrough because we've got the Legalism 3 that we want now. Now, what we're going to be doing is adjusting the laws of the Empire. The first thing that we're going to be doing is raising Crown Authority to high. Now, that's going to mean that my vassals are angry with me, but that's going to give us access to primogeniture. So we start by doing this upgrade right away. And the next thing, actually, we'll let some time go by before we go crazy with it. Let's also start by holding a grand tournament because that'll give me some very easy... upgrades to people's opinion of me. And we have a scholarship focus. Now, am I a pilgrim is the big question. I'm not. So let's change that to theology. And once we are done, we'll do a pilgrimage, and that's going to be another option. That's going to be another opportunity to gain some of the reputation. So basically, my goals right now will be to step one is to bring in High Crown Authority. That's so I can bring in primogeniture. I'm going to start by changing the succession laws in the titles that I hold. So that will be West Francia and Saxony. And then while I'm doing that, I'm going to slowly start assassinating members of my family so I can start taking their titles. I especially want things like Middle Francia, basically all of the old areas of the kingdom. And as I incorporate them into my personal holdings, I'm going to be able to change the succession laws, and that's just naturally going to parcel it out a little bit, so I don't need to worry about gaining too much support all at once to improve these things. There's going to be some efficiencies in terms of my realms that I need to work on as well. Like some of these baronies and things like that don't make any sense for me to really own at the moment, but I'll hand off those titles when I have, I've sort of secured my position. Right now I'm a new ruler. And in addition to the fact that I need to... Sorry, I just wanted to double check that nothing major happened in those notifications. In addition to the fact that I need to change my crown authority, I'm actually going to need to last for 10 years to bring up to actually be able to change the succession law. And then in addition to that, I'm actually going to need to have people like me. So that's why I'm doing things like these tournaments and things like that. Now, my heir is 18 and he doesn't have a wife yet, so let's start that right away. I'm not crazy about the fact that she's Orthodox, so let's see if we can find a better option. A Frank? Nope. This one I have to be a little careful in terms of the... I need to be a little bit careful in terms of the prestige loss, because this is a character I'm going to wind up playing. It's actually why the Greek may not be bad, because of the possible connection to a Basileus. Yeah, we'll just go with that. I'll probably wind up suffering some penalties because I'm probably going to wind up suffering some penalties just because I'm going to be allied to the Byzantines, and I'm actually probably going to be declaring war on them at some point. The next thing I'm going to do is just a slight moment just to sort of check the state of my cabinet. There's a couple of small improvements that I can... Wait a minute, what am I doing? I don't want to judge him by learning. I want to be judging him by diplomacy. So in this case here, I've got 24 diplomacy, which can replace my 17. Now, the drawback with this is that I wind up making some people angry at me. But in this case, I think the long-term gains from having these better advisors outweigh the cost of people who are angry at me. You can bribe people to make them like you again. But to have, the fact that I'm going to have a level 25 guy researching military tech, and I'm going to have a level 21 steward bringing in cash, that's really hard to pass up. We will do the cultural tech in my capital. Now, as much as I would love to have the spy master either helping out these plots or stealing technology, I do actually need to keep an eye on these factions, because I'm going to be at my weakest at this point, because my personal armies are quite low. And then, of course, the next step is that I'm going to have the maximum amount of dislike because I'm a new ruler. So in this case, it's sort of a short-term loss to just make sure that you've consolidated your position. Like, if you notice, I only have 2,000 personal troops. Now, in addition to my 5,000 retinue, so it's not that bad. And my vassal levies are 20k. But again, that's a fairly substantial loss compared to what we had under the previous ruler. So... Alright, so as you'll see here, we've got some factions showing up, which is a problem. Actually, I should have waited to see which ones came up, because I definitely... The faction in Mainz is not actually my biggest worry. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take sort of those people who already approved the law. This is tough. I'm going to take the people who have already sort of put their support behind the law. I'm going to take those as given and say that there's nobody else. And that's probably not realistic. I think there's going to be people who come on side a little bit later. What I want to be doing now is sort of accumulating the most votes that I can. And in this case, I'm just going to be looking for the people who have the biggest weight. So in this case, Prince Reisulf of the Holy Roman Empire, 11 votes. Fantastic example of somebody who I want to bring over. So actually, in this case, I'll sort by name. And this is where I'm going to wind up sending my diplomat. Again, it would be preferable for me to go conquering territories, but at the moment, we have the possibility of instituting a set of laws that will secure the power for the next, basically, the generations for the remainder of this playthrough. So even though I'm missing out on the opportunity to sort of improve my territory, right? I'm not at my vassal limit. I also have the possibility of increasing my domain size. This is the time to actually consolidate power and worry about your basically worry about getting the succession laws. You really want to get this done all in one go if you can. So, and obviously changing the succession laws in the Holy Roman Empire is going to be the most daunting task because you require so many votes. I'll be gaining some of these votes as I wind up killing my my family members. But there he is. And this is actually kind of nice because he's currently in a faction against me, so the improvement to opinion should also be fixing that. Sorry, Manner's been lurking for a while, forgot to say hello, and how is everybody? Kite, don't ever feel obligated to speak up in chat. As I was saying earlier, my experience of chat is usually to watch it as a silent partner rather than a chatter. It is absolutely fantastic to see you in the chat as always, so I'm glad you did speak up, but never feel that you're obligated to speak. For those of you who don't know him, Kite260 is a fellow Team Panda member, not from Vancouver, but incredibly nice guy, very supportive of streamers, not just mine, although I think you guys have gotten to see on display how good he is at making people feel welcome, making me feel great, and just generally being a really standout personality. But he has a fantastic stream on his own. It's one I strongly recommend. I love watching it, and I actually, one of my regrets with school and that is that I don't get to spend as much time in streams like Kite's, just because he's somebody who is a lot more laid back than I am. He's a genuinely nice person. I don't think I've ever seen him cross, or I don't think I've ever seen him talk down to somebody, whereas I'm just, I'm arrogant and mean and just, I almost feel like I'm a bad person if I compare myself to Kite, but I know I have other virtues. So he's somebody who absolutely, if only for his support of other streamers, I think he's worthy of following. But the recommendations I make are not just because I think they're nice people. I think it's because they're good streamers. And I think Kite is somebody who definitely deserves every follow that he gets. He earns every follow he gets. And if there was any justice in this world, he would have more of them. So you're doing yourself a favor if you hit that follow button. And especially if you want to have a nice relaxing time, if you want to get a chance to maybe relive some old favorites or maybe see some games that you haven't seen before. He's got a wonderful variety, and he also does co-op very well. So definitely a lot of great virtues in a streamer, in my opinion. Gonna watch while lurking and going to sleep, so enjoy. Freighter5, it's always fantastic to see you in the stream. We will do our best to get our succession laws in place before we finish off for the night. Have a great sleep, and I look forward to the next time we see each other in chat. Have a good one. All right, my kinsman Emmerich lacks all passion and ambition, perfectly content with his lot in life. I can say it suits his position where he gains content. Generally, I don't like this on people who could possibly be rulers. I actually would want the opposite, which is ambitious, so I say that will not do. Now, I could also be building a rival for myself, but that's a chance I'm willing to take. I think it's better to have a strong sort of succession pool with possible rivals than it is to have sort of a group of weak, slobbering dauphins. All right, it's time for the tournament to begin, and for the next 2 months, let all show their martial brilliance. And as always, we have cursed tournaments in the HRE, so first one to be tragically wounded. Most unfortunate. Let's see how many... I know the last time we had like 2 deaths, 6 woundings or something like that. It was ridiculous. All right, education time, because it is a girl. We are... Actually, this is a really good opportunity, so I'm going to pause and see, excuse me, what I can find. Guntram of Middle Frankian Revolt refused the revocation of the county of Liege requested by King Pepin the Ill Ruler. So it looks like they are both fighting for rulership of Middle Francia. It's actually not so bad. I mean, the problem with this one is that there's just so many people who can inherit. But they're all children, so I can work on this for a while. There's basically bigger fish for me to fry right now. Is anybody else we can add to this plot? 55? That's worth it. For double digits, paying something in the tens is not that bad. $100 for that guy, though, is a little rich for my blood. Yeah, even 48 for 4% I don't really think is a good return. Alright, my Spy Master is still occupied, so I can't work on any of those factions. But what I'll do now is, again, remember that I'm looking for people to be improving my... Basically, I'm looking for people to be supporting my laws. I'm looking to win either dukes or higher over. So I could actually send it off to Dalfer. Now, again, I'm probably going to wind up killing him. So in this case, I'm actually going to send it to this duke. Now, she may become French. Again, it doesn't matter because she's a girl. And in this case, it's just a straight 20. So I more make him neutral, but it's worth remembering that as time goes by... let me just take a vassal as an example. As you can see, there's a lot of negative opinions. Now, if I highlight over it, short reign, -16. So... as time goes by, that short reign is going to go away, which means that people who are at a 0 opinion of me right now are very slowly going to start ticking that up. So that's sort of the way that I look at it. I'm, it'd be nice if I could get them into the positive territory, but even making them break even means that at some point in the future, they're going to become positive. It's also worth mentioning that they're actually instituting some laws that I think are pretty cool. So they're doing things like free investiture, which is something I generally like having. But I don't want to burn up all of my, sort of my political capital, if you will, bringing in things like those. Most unfortunate. Again, I don't really care about who gets injured. My beloved son Kako is concerned that he's still not married. Good lord, this game doesn't know how to run itself. Okay, don't want that. I guess you're marrying your relative. Alright, already found him somebody nice. More tragic woundings. Somebody who's not in my family has been crowned the winner. Somebody else has been crowned second place. Yeah. I remember once upon a time, the Rose would have family members who won. I don't know what the deal is with these Carlings. All right, the tournament is over and now it's time to bask in glory. So this is the reason I did this. You notice all of these names here. It's a bonus 10 opinion for about 20 years. So that's going to be helping me when I want to institute policies that I want. I mean, again, we're still only at 45, but we haven't been letting this run for very long. And then, of course, it's worth remembering after we get High Crown Authority and after 10 years, we are actually going to be wanting to institute primogeniture. And that is going to require that all of my vassals have a positive opinion of me. So it's a very long process that we've set up, but there's some things that we can do to speed it up. So for example, I'm going to go on a pilgrimage. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, if I get the pilgrim, that's just going to be something that ticks up my piety over a period of time, so it's good for the score in the game. In addition, People who have the same religion as me, which is basically all of my vassals, are going to have an opinion modifier, a positive opinion modifier. And then finally, I can change my focus from theology to, let's say, diplomacy. Like family would be a good example. Gives me lots of heirs, lets me get a health bonus, and allows me to have a higher number of vassals. I might actually go for stewardship because I think, a high diplomacy will increase people's opinion modifiers of me, but I think a high stewardship would be good to get right now because it will, it'll give me the money I need to upgrade my holdings. I don't know. I'll think about it a little bit. I'm not really in a state where I want to be making these changes right now. All right, there are a number of different holy places that you could visit on your pilgrimage. All of them are considered most sacred by the Holy Church, but a somewhat closer destination might mean a safer journey. Let's go to Rome. I will go to Rome and see the tombs of the apostles. My things are packed, everything is in order. Soon I will walk the streets of the Eternal City and see its marvels. My journey begins. My liege, may you live in harmony and contentment. I have been appointed your regent. Possessed, adulterer, lover's pox, cruel, lustful, master seducer, cynical. What's the worst that could happen? The wicked Duke of Savoy. As you can see, we're still gaining a little bit of support for this law. I believe once somebody approves a law, they can't go back on it. So in this case, you need at least half of the realm to support it. So ultimately, we are looking for 225 votes, basically. So we're still a very long way off, but as time goes by, we'll slowly start making these improvements. Some of the other things that I can do as well is I'm going to be a little bit more conscious of things such as holding feasts and summer fairs, and basically doing everything that I can to incorporate people as I can. Also, it's worth remembering that I am going to be adding to my personal holdings, so I am going to be killing family members. Assuming I don't get caught, that's going to be adding to my titles, and so the votes from those territories are going to be working, kind of working to my favor as well. All right, you stop to make a camp near the river crossing along with other pilgrims. You observe a group of builders working on a new bridge just upstream. You walk up to them and see that the arches of the bridge are already half completed. The master builder notices your interest and walks up to you and offers to tell you about the construction techniques that they are using. Say, nobles build castles. This is for peasants. 30% chance of gaining the trait Proud. Now, not necessarily terrible because it does give me monthly prestige, but I also have a 30% chance of gaining Learning. In my opinion, Learning is the better of the traits. I actually have a fairly high one already. Oh, looks like I did get it. What that's going to be doing is it'll actually be affecting my point growth. So in this case, it says from attributes, learning plus diplomacy for culture, and then just so you'll see, obviously my military traits. This is economy, so it's learning plus stewardship. In this case, learning plus martial. So in this case, the fact that I have a high learning actually means that I'm going to be developing in terms of these advances faster. So learning is something of an underrated trait to have. But it's a solid one, and you'll notice that it wasn't so for the vassals. Vassals was a primary reason for me having a high diplomacy, but another reason to have a high diplomacy is specifically so you can get your legalism up to a point where you can introduce primogeniture as soon as possible. So, Rome. You have finally arrived at Rome. As you enter the Eternal City, you are struck by the many ancient buildings and monuments that you pass by. It is truly impressive, and you imagine how the apostles must have felt when they first came in here on their holy mission at a time when the city's power was at its peak. Though large areas seem to be depopulated, the city still boasts an impressive population concentrated around the Tiber River. The holy sites that you want to visit are primarily the basilicas of St. Peter and St. Paul, as well as other churches and places connected to the martyrs. You start making your way to the center of the city, hoping you won't get lost in traffic as the crowds start to get more dense. 1,000 roads lead men forever to Rome. The stories of the other pilgrims all spoke of how impressive this place is. Now you can see with your own eyes, you can only join in their praise. You are glad that you came here to one of Christianity's holiest places. It was well worth the journey. 20 piety. Again, individual amounts like 20 piety for ignoring the CB or something like that don't seem like a lot, but it's worth remembering that with a 769 start date, you effectively have 700 years worth of these little 20 piety incremental gains, so they do actually add up over time. You always take them where you can. Weebro, how the hell are you, my friend? Weebro is a Team Panda member. He lives in Texas, so we don't always get a chance to see him in channel, and of course, it's not always that we also have people who watch but don't necessarily chat, but it is always a special moment to see Weebro in the channel. If you guys are not following him, I know I just spent a lot of time talking about how nice Kite is. Weebro has a special place simply because I had just become a mod when he had applied, and he was a stream that was so fantastic. I had to do everything I could to, throw my support behind it and say, make sure that this guy's on Team Panda. Now, it was not a hard sell at all, because as soon as the other mods saw his channel, they thought, fantastic streamer, of course we want him on the team. But if you want an idea of somebody where it's like, my God, what a streamer, I gotta see this guy on the team, this is the guy who you should be following. I think he was playing Mad Max when I last saw him. I believe the last stream you had, you were streaming Soma, and I haven't bought it, but I probably will wind up getting it in the future. Actually, yeah, maybe I should decide between City Skylines and Soma. I don't know. I'm still looking for recommendations if either of you do. But I believe Weebro has been enjoying Soma. Forgive me for not stopping by and watching it, but definitely, Weebro is worth checking out. Please hit the follow button on him. He is somebody who deserves far more followers than he has, and you will be having a great time when you stop by his channel. I'm doing okay, Weebro. I've got a beast of a midterm coming up, so I'm probably not going to be streaming too much longer tonight, but I'm certainly going to be enjoying the time that I'm here. How are you doing, though? Fate smiles upon me, and my wife, my God, Theudgotho is pregnant. Lombard. Of course she has the lover's pox. Alright. I may not actually be getting the succession... I mean, unless this guy lives to be as old as his dad, I may not actually be getting the succession laws that I want. So what I should be focusing on at this point is assassinating family members to claim the territory as quickly as possible. Alright, so we can't do Summer Fair anymore. We're in October, so at this point we just wait for the opportunity for a feast. This means that we're actually going to have some vassals that don't participate. Oh, actually, I want to take a minute and see... It's unlikely I'm going to be able to vassalize... Yeah. What's their strength at? 16,000? No decadence, so that's actually... I think their armies would be pretty strong. Oh, but they borrowed from the Jewry, so they're going to be pretty weak